Hello and welcome back to Colonel O'Truth's Miniature Issues. In the last episode I started construction of the guild house on East Street, and in this episode I'm going to finish it and finally place it in the city. So when you left me I was undercoating the model, and now I'm going to apply a wash of brown ink to the entire thing. This will add depth and warmth later on. By applying this step, it means that the rest of the model can largely be painted with dry brushing, which is quick and easy. Here's a dry brushing with a light yellow. I had applied white, which I don't normally do, and it looked too pale, so I'm going over it now. After the yellow, I'll go over with white on top, and then straight into outlining the timberwork with more neat brown ink. Now remember that models are three-dimensional, and that means you can't just paint the face of the timberwork here. You need to get down the sides and on all of the ends. This is really the only fiddly bit, but as you can see, it goes on pretty quickly. I'm using the side of the brush here to basically apply a flat layer straight across the top of the timber, and then I only have to pick out the sides. With the apothecary done, I'm applying the same technique using red ink to the guild house. This will still show the wood grain through, but it's a nice bright paint colour. Really stands out. You could do this with any colour you liked, it's a question of experimentation. I did make a couple of test pieces first to make sure this was going to work. Carefully working around the shutters. It won't matter if there are one or two mistakes. I'm going to do these with the brown, which is darker than the red and should cover them up. Now for the stonework on the chimneys. This is the same as all the rest of the stone in Undercrag City, as it all comes from the same mountain. So it's dark grey, followed by a light grey dry brush, then white, and then finally a thin black wash. Again, these are just test pots of house paint. They're not expensive. And although the inks cost a little bit, they go a very long way. Again, this is watered down, 1 part ink to 4 parts water, so a single drop is doing this entire chimney. And that's where we are so far. So moving on to the roofs. You can see the wires sticking out of the bottom of the guild house where I've installed the LEDs. I'll show this process in a later video. So, this is thick paper getting stuck to the framing, and then I'm really just daubing them with PVA, water and ink. I don't want to apply so much moisture that they fall apart, but I want them to sag onto the beams so that later when I tile the roofs you can see the shape of the construction and the building looks old and worn. I hope you're finding these videos informative and entertaining, and if you are, please like and subscribe. You'll really be helping me out. Feel free to leave comments as well. I enjoy responding to them. The sections of roof don't need to be perfect. I can easily cover any gaps later when I'm putting the tiles on. The black ink stops light from the LEDs from getting through. Black paint now for extra darkness, cut out more of the light, and it helps set everything into shape just like the PVA. And they're really starting to take on the shape of the beams. Now a quick lighting test. I'm very happy with that. You can't see many gaps in the roofs. This is a sheet of card cut from a cat food box. I've marked it out with tiles, 6mm long, 3mm wide, and with a very sharp knife I'm cutting them into strips. I'll do a couple of strips at a time, starting at the bottom of the roof, a line of PVA, and off we go with what's going to prove to be quite a long process. Stick some decent music on in the background and get into it. The second layer of PVA overlaps the tiles underneath, so you're sticking the new ones to the roof and to the previous row. You need to keep an eye on keeping these rows relatively straight. I'm not trying to be too precise. As I've mentioned before, Undercrag is old. I didn't count these, but anyone who wants to, from these pictures, let me know how many tiles I applied. This is a favourite trick of mine. This is brass foil from a tomato paste tube. When you've used up your paste, split the tube open, wash it, flatten it out like I'm doing here with a steel ruler. You can then cut this into strips. I'm using the same knife, but be warned this will blunt the blade, so you'll want to change it immediately. I'm using this material for the ridge tiles. They need to fold over the roof, and I can get a good fold without showing a score line. I can do this with an HB pencil instead of anything harder. Marking the lengths of the ridge tiles, I'm making these twice as long as the tiles are wide, so 6mm, and cutting them with scissors. Again, these will go on just with PVA. You don't need any special glues. They really just need to be held in place. And I'm pressing these into shape, one overlapping the next. This is really not a straight line at all, which is fine by me. You could use all of these techniques to make a straighter, more precise roof if you wanted to. I'm being deliberately haphazard. Thin line of the same material, just to create a line of flashing at the top of the tiles. And applying chimney pots cut from plastic tube. So you see, none of this is particularly complicated. It is fiddly. You need a good eye for keeping the tiles straight. But that's looking pretty good. Now a piece of basswood, 4mm by 4mm, and I'm taking one side off at an angle. You could use balsa for this. but being softer, it's harder to get such nice edges. I'm just going to colour this straight away with neat browning. No need to use an undercoat. Cutting these into short pieces. Then by brushing them with tissue, you clean some of the ink off the edges, which gives it a bit of a highlight. A good dollop of PVA on the top. And dip them in some decorative flocking. Let them dry, and then some very delicate, just little touches of white paint. Tiny little window boxes. Now I'm painting the roofs. Same grey undercoat as everything else. Make sure you get into all of the little nooks and crannies here. Quick shot of the hardware. Black card silver paint, just like I did on the doors of the towers and other buildings in earlier episodes. And it's onto a brown wash on the roofs. Don't forget to do the edges, and again, get into all of the little gaps. You don't want light grey undercoat showing through. There we are, that's looking almost finished. Now the highlighting. This is the same light yellow house paint as before. And then white. When you compare the prices of house paint acrylic like this to expensive hobby paints, milliliter for milliliter, it works out at about 20% of the price, at most. So it really doesn't make any sense to use expensive paints for this kind of work. And on with the rust. This is semi-translucent ink, so all of those nice deep tones and highlights show through. Gives the roof lots of character and depth. And now to apply the window boxes. There's my faithful pointy stick. This'll take a little bit of messing around, but I'm trying to get them all at about the same height up the wall and nicely centered under each window. They're very lightweight, which makes them a little bit difficult to apply sometimes. They'll slip around as you're trying to get them in place. Just be patient. I think that's quite a nice little touch. Now I've mocked up a miniature shield. I'm going to put heraldry across the front of the building for each of the 4 trades that use it as a guild hall. These are the builders, the brewers, the miners, and the smiths. Illustration like this is not my forte, but on such a small scale, you can get away with quite a lot. Really just needs to make an impact from a distance. I was tempted to design these on a computer and print them on paper, but I feel this is against the whole ethos of what I'm doing here. I want this whole city to be made by hand. Backing these with grey. I just don't want any purple showing through. You never quite know what angles you're going to find you can view things from. Bit of black as well, just to darken this off. It would be a shame to install these and suddenly see that you could see something you don't want to see. These are going on equidistant across the front of the building, and I'm hanging them down into space to make them more noticeable and more interesting. And finishing the edges of them. Again, although they're flat card, they are 3-dimensional. Not bad. Now, because Undercrag is so small, I need to get in and finish the street just in front of the building, because I'm not going to be able to do it properly later. Just trying to make my life easier for the future. Dark grey, light grey, white, black wash, and green and yellow in the gutters. A goodly amount of PVA in here. And in we go. Getting into the edge there. few drops of green here and there. Now these are the matchsticks you may have noticed earlier that I just inked in red over brown. Bit of fiddling around to get them nice and straight, looking from both sides and the front. And we're done. Quite a grand looking building, I think. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.